Onigashima is currently in the midst of hurtling down towards Wano in what would no doubt be a major catastrophe, costing many their lives because Kaido no longer possesses the strength to maintain the flame clouds which previously kept it aloft. And so yet again Yamato would cry out to the young lord of Wano, Momonosuke, to make his own flame clouds and save them all. However, Momonosuke, despite his newfound draconic adult body, was finding great difficulty in the production of said flame clouds, to the point where he would regard such a thing as impossible, as no matter how hard he tried, they just wouldn't come out. Despite now physically being a grown man, at heart Momonosuke was still a young boy, and as a result would begin to sob as he recalled the bitter past. Another instance in which he felt incapable of fulfilling an especially daunting task. As their abode burned to the ground, Momonosuke would be urged by his mother, Lady Toki, to go along with Kinemon and the other samurai. Here, his mother was resolute in her belief that Momonosuke would be able to bring the Kozuki clan back to prominence, as was so rightfully deserved by his leaping of 20 years into the future. A task which Momonosuke felt was impossible for him, as he wailed in sorrow. That if he needed to go, he didn't want to go without his mother and sister, which would prompt Kinemon to chime in, calling out to the young boy, urging him to take his mother's feelings into account, telling him that a true man of the land of samurai should never question the resolve of a woman with such strong conviction, that to do so would be a most shameful act, which would prompt Momonosuke to rebut that he's not a man, he's a child. Kinemon, with Raizo and the treacherous Kanjuro at his sides, would lower his head and express that with their lord Odin no longer being among the living, Momonosuke was no longer merely just his heir. And as he raised his head with tears flooding from his eyes, he would beg for the young lord to allow them this opportunity to fight once more, that he would much rather die in honor on a battlefield than await such an honorless death by flames. Begging for but a chance, he was willing to do anything just to wield his sword for the boy's sake, a determination and outcry that no matter how cowardly he may be, Momonosuke could not ignore. As he would suddenly move from his mother's side and approach his men as he shook, he would then call out to her, and as he trembled and cried, would tell her that he was ready and willing to go now. So yeah, when push comes to shove, despite how cowardly he may be, Momonosuke is truly a remarkable person when it comes to what he is willing to do for the sake of those he cares for. This farewell from his beloved mother would lay heavily on his heart, making it so that despite his difficulties, he refused to have things end in such a way without trying, as he would never be able to face his mother in the afterlife otherwise. And so, his efforts would persist. Meanwhile, as storm clouds crackled above, Luffy successfully managed to grab hold of a bolt of lightning. A truly ridiculous feat indeed, which certainly amused the draconic Oni as Luffy charged in with an electrifying attack. Now, pretty anticlimactically, Luffy would silly toss his thunderbolt in Kaido's direction, and with relative ease, Kaido would just dodge out of the way. Now, this kind of makes the end of the last chapter a little lackluster, but you know, lightning strikes pretty quickly, and by quickly, I mean 270,000 miles per hour, so it's kind of crazy that this missed Kaido. Although you could argue that its speed may have been reduced on account of Luffy being the one to fling it. This could also be a testament to how incredible Kaido's observation haki really is. And speaking of Kaido, as he clutched onto his Sasaikai, referred to Luffy's latest efforts as playing around, and would again successfully manage to land a direct blow on him. And after being sent back into the sky, Luffy would manage to grab hold of yet another bolt of lightning, and this time around, whirl around it and use the momentum of this as a propellant back to his adversary. But as he did this and charged up an attack, Kaido would declare that ultimately a powerful devil fruit ability would not be enough to conquer the seas, as before Luffy could land a hit, Kaido would play whack-a-mole with Luffy's head, sending the air that had been gathered in his arm elsewhere and into his leg. And maybe it's just me, but Kaido seems to be especially brutal lately. Like prior to Luffy being able to eat these hits in Gear 5th, I don't recall Kaido putting in that work like he is now. And that's probably because Oda can get away with Kaido landing these direct blows, and them not being downright fatal to Luffy because, again, he is way more rubberized. But as he collapsed Luffy's face in on itself, the man with the highest bounty alive would provide us with some priceless information about the man with the highest bounty ever. The king of the pirates, Goldie Roger, as apparently Roger, despite conquering the seas, in reality had no devil fruit powers, which is just insane. Considering how major devil fruit abilities are and have been in the story and world, it is truly remarkable that he was able to stand at the top without them. This also serves to exemplify the truly incredible capabilities of haki, that more than simply leveling the playing field, can be used to completely dominate the world. There's also the fact that after over 1,000 chapters into this story, and we are still able to learn so much about Roger even now. I mean, I honestly cannot wait to learn more about his life prior to such notoriety and the sort of young man he may have been. For most, it takes a long while before haki becomes a tool in their arsenal, so was Roger always such a badass, or did it take him a long time and journey? As usual with this series, once we receive an answer, a dozen new questions come to take its place. But when the time for those questions to be answered does arrive, hopefully you'll be subscribed to Plot Armor with notifications on. This massive massive blow from Kaido would knock Luffy onto the rubberized ground, which would stretch upon impact, springing him back up to Kaido, who would so boldly proclaim that what was required for such conquest was the power of haki, as Luffy prepared himself for the brunt of the blow, as again, Kaido would manage to deal some major damage to Luffy with another violent swing. At this point, Luffy was looking pretty rough, all while maintaining that same cartoony appearance. Yet despite his spinning eyes, Luffy would actually manage to grip onto and stretch the flesh of Kaido like the folds of a short-haired dog and begin to bring him upwards. Although Kaido would notice and resist this by grabbing hold of Luffy's arm and furthermore slammed his weapon onto the boy's arm to free himself. Yet Luffy's grip would not loosen, and so Kaido would swiftly shift into his full dragon form and capitalize on the fact that Luffy had so openly exposed his position amidst the clouds, as he would then send several incredibly deadly slashing attacks with his scales way up high. And considering these two have been fighting against one another for so long, Kaido was well acquainted with this weakness of Luffy's, which hadn't ceased to be simply because of his Devil Fruit awakening. Luffy certainly struggled against this, but for some reason still refused to loosen his grip. We would then catch a glimpse of the Wano Fire Festival's conclusion. Here, the gleeful attendants would set their lanterns into the sky, urging them to reach the heavens where the departed now reside. With the festival nearing its end, they knew that it wouldn't be long before they were made to resume their lives as slaves. If they smiled and laughed all the same, simply hoping to survive until the next time. A sorrowful desire indeed. And again, we would see Toko as she hoped her lantern would reach her recently departed father. As on Onigashima, the battle was still raging on. Luffy, even despite Kaido's many attempts, refused to loosen his grip or return to the ground. And with his position revealed, Kaido would have no trouble hitting Luffy directly with his breath attack. Luffy here had been charred yet again, but still managed to hold on tight, which is exactly what you should do because things only become that much more astounding later on in the chapter. On the interior, the collapse of Onigashima was clear as day to many. And to Hyogoro, this just meant that Kaido was nearing his end, from which point he would sit up and question the men around him, asking them which fate they preferred. That if Luffy were to win, it would mean that all of them would surely die from the fall of the castle. Yet if Kaido were to win, they would be able to cling onto their lives for a bit longer, despite the horrendous conditions they were subjected to. To this, the valiant warriors would begin to smile and laugh, as to them, the answer was simple. They had many they fought for and sought to protect. That if Luffy were to win, their loved ones would finally be able to live in peace. An unpayable debt that would mean the safety of their country and its people. The many warriors would then happily call out for Luffy to forget about them and take Kaido down for good. Which was a wonderfully valiant sentiment, yet the small panel of Captain Kidd's expression to this stands out to me. Is he recoiling at the thought of such a demise and their willingness to accept it, or is this foreshadowing for an unfortunate turn of events? We'll have to wait and see. It is pretty easy to read too deep into things with this series, just as it is easy to overlook them. The Beast Pirates would have to wonder if these samurai had a death wish, which Hyogoro didn't see much fault in, all things considered. In the basement, we would then have Usopp and Hamlet frantically running for their lives as the flames continued to consume the premises. However, it wouldn't be long before the watery combined efforts of Raizo and Jinbei would rush into them, accelerating their pace elsewhere. However, the tremors produced by this sudden surge of water would inadvertently loosen the sea stone nail Orochi was struggling against, therefore allowing him to resume his Zoan form. Despite this, considering he had been set ablaze, he still believed the time for him to die was drawing near. Yet even still, he saw this as an opportunity to claim the life of Odin's daughter along with his own, as she cowered. And hopefully when the water makes its way through, as a Devil Fruit user, Orochi will become inert. This guy's presence itself is bothersome, so yeah, really looking forward to the day where we don't have to think about him anymore. We would then make our way back to Luffy's fight against Kaido, as Luffy would suddenly call out to Momonosuke, catching his and Yamato's attention as they absolutely could not believe their eyes. And for good reason too, as from above would be a massive haki encoded fist of Luffy, which rivaled the size of Onigashima itself. The very location which Luffy would surely destroy in his assault against Kaido, and so he would call on Momonosuke to move Onigashima out of the way. And let me just say, the Luffy at this point is like a human Buster Call, because there is no reason he can't do this in Gatling form. And I really love that Luffy is doing this because Kaido just called him out on his haki, and he is proving that yeah, he has haki, definitely. Momonosuke and Yamato would panic at the suddenness of all this, but Luffy was not stopping and had complete and utter faith in Momonosuke, even if he lacked it in himself. Now hopefully, unlike the Thunderbolt, there is no evading this for Kaido. He is being held onto, and this is a big fist. So if nothing else, it should land, and if Onigashima is knocked out of the way, Then there's really only water below, and even Kaido's not impervious to the difficulties of being a Devil Fruit user, so hopefully, all things considered, this is the final blow. That being said, I don't believe this fight against Kaido will be concluded with this attack, no matter how much I wish it to be. The fact of the matter being that for a character like Kaido to be so well informed in regards to awakening and the like, it's hard not to imagine him being able to do so himself. So yeah, I'm anticipating even more Kaido versus Luffy action in the chapters to come, but we'll just have to wait and see. As always, I am Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.